All right, let's do this. So my name is Pierce Medford. I'm an introduction to marketing, Monday, Wednesday, 2 to 4 p.m. My professor is Michael Myers, and this is my book review. So I read The Voice Catchers by Joseph Turow. Um, and it's all about how marketers use your voice and transcript of your voice when you connect with smart speakers and when you're on the phone with companies. And they basically take that data and use it to market towards you, or that's the goal at least. Um, and so the book kind of explores that and kind of the history of it and some of the side effects and how the industry could look like in the future. I'm going to get into some things that surprised me and then um, how this technology was impacted by COVID-19. And then we'll get into how some of the trends in this book affect my client, which is SoundCloud. So, to begin, a few things that surprised me. First was how the book talked about um, phone centers recording your voice to understand your emotions and how you're feeling, and then using that information and tailoring responses to you to, I guess, better serve you and that sort of thing. And so I thought this was really interesting because from a company standpoint, it's really smart, if they can tell that, I'm really distressed while I'm on the phone with them, they can tailor responses to not agitate me and to, I guess, make me feel better and, try to sell me something or help me have like a better customer service experience. I think it's also really creepy because I think a lot of people, myself included, don't really want a lot of these major big companies to know a lot of information about them and to, kind of know their emotions and their personality and how they're thinking. The reality is most of them already do just by looking at your activity on their site or your cookies and that sort of thing. But it's overall just kind of creepy, in my opinion. And then also it's interesting how, a lot of these companies we give them consent without really knowing it. They when you're on the phone and you're on hold and they say, "Oh, this call might be recorded for training purposes" or that sort of thing. They're, that's a statement, but by stating that, they're asking for consent. And so, even though you're not saying, "Oh, it's okay to record me and listen to me," they're doing it anyway. I guess their form of consent isn't that traditional, I guess, in my opinion. Um, Another thing that I thought was interesting, this book talked about the sale of smart speakers and like the Amazon Echo, Google Home Mini, the Apple One, and a few other companies that are kind of making smaller ones. And something that I thought was interesting was how the Apple speaker, the Apple Smart speaker, wasn't selling as well as the other two, the Amazon Echo and the Google Mini. And I think they were talking about how the Apple one is more expensive and it's a luxury item. Google's a design company, they're a luxury company. Everything's a bit more high end. And so, I think less people could afford it, less people really fit into that demographic. And then also the Amazon Echo and the Google Home Mini, despite what Google and Amazon say, those speakers are designed to help sell stuff to you. They're designed to make your shopping experience better. And that's a search engine company and it's a logistics company. Apple isn't really like that. They're trying to get you to buy Apple products, but they're not their speaker, in my opinion, really isn't designed to, help you buy stuff on the internet. So I think that's where they lost potential consumers and customers, just because their product wasn't really designed for that. And then the third thing I thought was interesting was kind of government regulation and how that affects this. I think uh, all this technology is really new, and this industry is really new, and everyone's kind of just figuring out, how things are working, and there's not a lot of regulation, and all these companies are kind of faking it till you make it. and that sort of thing. And so, any government regulation we see is probably going to be, 5 or 10 years down the road, just because that's usually how long it takes. Um, will government regulation be specific enough to actually do something about people's privacy and that sort of thing? I think that's interesting. I'm going to talk about that a little later. Um, I, I also think there's some irony because the book talked about how political campaigns could use your voice data to target and market certain things to you and exploit niches and exploit voters. So I think, it's kind of ironic if, the government's like, hey, we need more regulation. We want to make sure everyone's being safe. Your privacy is being protected. Oh, but also like we're going to listen to your voice and your voice transcripts, during my next campaign. And, I'm going to try to, market my ideas towards you. So I think that's interesting. I think that's kind of funny in a sad, creepy way. But yeah. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about how voice technology and voice technology devices have been and kind of are impacted by COVID-19. During COVID-19, we definitely saw people buying a lot more stuff online. We were all sitting on our couches, just ordering stuff from Amazon. And the question is, did people actually use smart speakers for this? Yes and no. I mean, some did. There was a big increase in smart speaker usage during this time, but a lot of that was just like, hey, Google, play my Spotify playlist, or, Alexa, give me like a news rundown, or, like, what did Fauci say today? That sort of thing. So I mean, from what I've seen, a lot of the smart device usage during the pandemic wasn't necessarily like, oh, like, hey, Alexa, like, I want to buy this, or that sort of thing. It was more just like someone to talk to, and they were used more as speakers, not really, devices that you could buy stuff with. Um, how do I think? How do I personally feel about this technology and how businesses use it? I don't like the idea of this technology. I don't like how I'm being recorded and how my information is, being used by big companies. Obviously, the reality is that everyone is everyone's information is out there, and companies are already exploiting me whether I know it or not, just by looking at like my cookies and my interactions on their site. So I mean, it's frustrating, but I can accept it just because it's already been happening in different forms. um, I think I think like my smart speaker usage is interesting just because I have a Google Home Mini, and it gets really frustrated with me sometimes because I really only use it to like ask what the weather is and to give me like a news update now and then, and to like play music. Like, hey Google, play my Spotify playlist, or hey Google, give me like a news rundown, like what happened today. And even when I ask for the weather, like in the morning, I'll be like, hey Google, what's the weather going to be like today? After it tells me the weather, it's like, hey, like I can give you like a rundown of your day, like your meetings, your emails, all this, like if you want me to. And every time I'm like, no, Google, I'm not giving you that info. So I think I think Google and my Google Home Mini are upset with me, but I use it to the extent that I want. I don't even have it at school right now. It's back home, and I'm probably not going to bring it out in the spring, because there's a weather app on your phone and Spotify. So like, why would I use a smart speaker for that? Um, I what changes could be made? I think going back to the government regulation, I think that's really what we need. Like I said, legislation is going to take a while, just because legislation does take a while, and then also we don't really know what's going on, what needs to be regulated, the specifics of it. What we see right now is the top of the iceberg, but there's so much underneath the water. So I mean, we'll see what happens. I think the book talked about the California Consumer Privacy Act and then also the Illinois Biometric Information Privacy Act. I think those are both really interesting. I'm glad California has something, just because all those companies are in California, and so it's good to have legislation right at the center, right at the hub. Um, the CCPA, the California one, um, basically says companies have to delete voice prints if the consumer asks. Um, which raises the question, well, do consumers know that they have that right? And also, how do they go about doing that? Like, do you have to call Amazon and wait on hold for a few hours? Is there something you can do online? Um, while there is regulation, do people know about it? Are they actually going to do something about it? Probably not. Um, the BIPA, the Illinois one, that's more specific. They define biometric identifiers more, and they also have more guidelines for companies recording your data, including companies need to have like a written release from consumers in order to track their voices and that sort of thing, which I thought was really interesting. Illinois of all places too. Um, the other things I think that need to be changed are like prejudice and racism with these smart speakers, because the book talked about how in like studies with the smart speakers, I think it was the Echo, when they were listening to a white voice and a black voice, there was like 35% more mistakes listening and to the black voice and understanding that. And I think that just goes back to programming. If you have a bunch of white male tech bros in Silicon Valley programming all these devices, you're definitely going to run into some prejudice and some racism just because the machines and the programming aren't diverse. And so, well, I guess programmers aren't diverse, which then in turn makes the devices and the code not diverse. Um, so yeah, I guess more diversity in the actual programmers would be good, because then that will kind of trickle down into the devices. Um, and then I guess the last thing is these devices don't react well to when someone says they've been sexually assaulted or they've been raped, or if they say something, I guess, kind of like offensive, or if they like catcall the device. I think that just goes back to like more diversity with programmers and better responses. I mean, it's a tricky subject. It's a tricky issue. Like, how do you respond to that sort of thing when someone tells you that they've been sexually assaulted? It's hard enough in person. How's an AI gonna like figure that out? So I think I don't know, more tailored responses, like pulling up websites that deal with, I guess, victims and that sort of thing. That could be good if the speakers did that. But I mean, like I've been saying, it's everything's unprecedented, everything's new, everything's kind of, all these companies are kind of just making it up as they go, trying to figure things out. So hopefully that gets better as well. Okay, finally, how do trends in this book impact SoundCloud, my client? I think the big thing is just, are people using their smart speakers to listen to music on SoundCloud? Hey Google, play my SoundCloud playlist, or that sort of thing. I don't know. There's not a lot of data out there to look at that. I was thinking, should SoundCloud work with Amazon and Google to create their own set of skills that would, help with editing music? So you could have like your speaker connected to the SoundCloud website or the app, and you could say, oh, like, hey Google, rewind that track, play it slower, or hey Google, add like a bass line, underneath this like riff. That sort of thing would be interesting. Would creators actually want to use that? There's only one way to find out, I guess. You have to try it out. And then also our group, we want to create a recording microphone / speaker for SoundCloud. That's kind of what we thought of for our marketing campaign. And so, should we make it smart? Should we make an AI go with it that could help with the recording process? I mean, I think like with the first version and the first design, probably not. If we were really doing this for real, like maybe the third or fourth iteration, we could try something like that. Would we want to partner with Amazon or Google to do that? So, like you could have like the Google Voice or Alexa on the speaker, that would probably be easier than if we just tried to make our own voice and our own thing. Although that would probably be more authentic. So, yeah, I was just thinking, kind of just to summarize, would people actually use the smart speaker to listen to music on SoundCloud? And then would they want some sort of AI to actually help them with the recording process? Um, that is all I have. Just to summarize, I read the voice casters, obviously. Um, Things that were surprising were just phone centers recording your voice and listening to your emotions. The Apple speaker not doing well compared to the Google and Amazon ones. Government regulation. Um, how COVID impacted smart speakers. Um, that sort of thing. I don't really personally like this technology. And then kind of what changes should be made, government regulation, less prejudice and less racism would be nice. And then how this impacts SoundCloud. All right, thank you.